I started looking around and looking at everybody, and I thought, this is not how I was raised, you know? This is, I don't want this. I know that there's gotta be something better out here in life. I know it's gotta be. I came to Skid Row for the first time. I came here and I just wanted to die. My homelessness had nothing to do with my needs and my wants. It had to do with how I felt on the inside about myself. I felt horrible. I was an adopted kid. My mother gave me away. She had 6 children. I was the darkest child that she had. She wasn't too fond of my color. And because of that today, I think that played a lot of part of like why I didn't think that I was good enough and why I didn't really like myself. I grew up in a $500,000 home. I went to a school with doctors and lawyers and teachers. I didn't want need for anything. So I didn't find out I was adopted till I was like 15 years old. I left, I ran away, I was bitter, I was angry. At the age of 18, I came to Skid Row. I would come down here and then I would just like wander the streets, and then my mom would beg me to come home and I would go home. And I would stay at home for a little bit and then I would just leave. I just kept doing this for years, This is the place actually where it had rained and I was sleeping under this tree. What I would do most of the time was I would either sleep or I would just keep walking. And then sometimes I would go into like some of the organizations just to talk to the people so that they see me and I see them. You know, I wanted to be seen and I wanted to be heard because I didn't want somebody to forget who I was. I never did sleep in a tent. I didn't like going inside a tent because to me it feels so unsafe. I just laid out on the ground where I could, you know, turn around and I could see everything. But for me to be inside, it's like, I don't know who can come in, who could do something to you. So because of that, I don't do it. But I see an awful lot of tents out here now. A friend of mine named KK actually told me that there was a group of people called the Giving Spirit that was giving away bags. When I looked inside, something triggered inside of me. Something said, I don't want to be in need. I don't want to be hungry. I'm happy because somebody cared for me when I wasn't able to care for myself. I'm happy. Despite the tears, I'm happy.
I moved around a lot because my parents, they owned dry cleaners. When I was born, they were living in South Central LA. Then we started moving from there into a variety of different better and better apartments until they were finally able to buy a house for their first time down in Orange County, California. From the outside, it looked like the American dream family. My mom, for as long as I can remember, was always beating me. It started off with whatever stick she could find. I remember one Christmas I got a set of toy golf clubs. And she took the golf sticks and she would beat me with them until they were all broken. When I was 9, I, for the first time in my life, resisted my mother and her beatings. And she had a stick that had some nails in it, and so I was really badly injured, and so I tried to stop her for the first time. And that just sent her over the edge. So she went to the kitchen and came back with a knife. I remember standing at the door for what seemed like forever, realizing and thinking, if I go, my life is over. And so, and I realized that, if I want to live, I have no choice. And so I ended up running out and running for several blocks. And one of the neighbors was outside doing yard work, and they saw me and they called the police. And so I was taken to the hospital, and I had multiple stab wounds. And after I was discharged from the hospital, they took me to the county shelter. There were summer camps I went to for kids who were wards of the court, and there were adults that would give up their time and come and spend time with you and do cool things like arts and crafts, and go swimming, go hikes and all that. And so for a week, maybe 2 weeks, you can forget that you're living in hell. I had one foster home placement. I was at that time where all the issues started coming up. I was a very angry early teenager at the time. I kept on pushing and testing boundaries and limits until it got to be so uncomfortable for everyone that I ended up going back into the system and being placed as cycle through foster home, or group homes rather. One night I woke up and my roommate was trying to molest me, was trying to rape me, and so I ran away. And that's how I ended up on the streets. I'd start off trying to go to secluded places like under freeway bridges and things like that, but that ended up being a bad idea because you end up being a target. When I was 17, I woke up. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know how I had gotten there. And I realized that I was going to die. I was an addict, hooked on coke, and knew that I was in big trouble and I was going to die unless something changed. So I called one woman who I had met through one of these summer camps. She had let me couch surf every once in a while, and she got me into rehab, and so I detoxed and been sober ever since. I have a master's degree now. I have an MBA. I am a chief marketing officer for a startup software company. When I was interviewing for my last job, they were asking me about myself and what's the most unusual thing about you, they asked. And I said, well, I'm a surprise. You would never guess that I was homeless. You would never guess that I'm a high school dropout. And so being completely transparent about that has made me a lot more comfortable in my own skin and also allowed me to connect with other people. I think the thing I'm most grateful for is that, when I think back as a child, I never expected to have a family. I always expected to be alone. 13 years ago now, almost 14 years, I met my husband Brian, so we decided that we would go the surrogacy route. And now we have 19-month-old twins, a boy and a girl. I remember all these people who tried to help me, and I know that they think that they had no impact at all. I'm only here because of the generosity and the compassion of people that tried to help me all the way through my life.
My life now, compared to my life on the street, I'm happy. I'm happy. Growing up was tough. You know, we grew up in the South, but family was tight. I was just out of high school. Then I went to the recruiting station and I signed up for the military. I met my wife when I was at Fort Bragg. When I came out the military, trying to find a job down south, it's kind of tough. A lot of racial tension going on. My first child, my daughter, that was a very joyous moment. A couple of years after that, my wife was pregnant with twins. She struggled with that pregnancy. So they were born early and they died. You know, one lived, I think, 3 or 4 months, and the other one lived like 5 or 6 months. After my sons had died, I started drinking a lot. I was doing drugs. I just didn't care anymore. I didn't care about nothing anymore, you know. Well, I had a cousin that offered to let me stay with her for a minute, for a little while. And that was okay for a little while. But one morning about 2 or 3 o'clock, she just woke me up and told me that I have to go. And I'm like, go where? I don't know the streets like that. So, you know, I just sat there until I could figure things out, you know. And that's how it started. And right over there where the little concrete little wall is, right there. Behind that wall is a dumpster. And that's why I would hide. And during the time that I started sleeping there, I was going to Southwest College. Yeah, I guess that military thing kicked in where, you know, I went into survival mode. My plate was full. I'm trying to do school and survive on the streets at the same time. That was tough. It didn't look like I was gonna make it because I couldn't focus. I wasn't focusing on work anymore. It was where you gonna sleep, you know, what you gonna eat today, and how you gonna keep yourself going to school and not looking homeless. I cut my own hair. I had to keep me a pair of clippers, you know, because that was important, because you can turn into a wild man real fast on the street, you know. I had met the Giving Spirit. And that's when the backpack came in. I met Tom and a few other members that took me as a friend that day. When I opened that backpack, I saw hope. And it was a sandwich with a side of hope to me. That gave me one, you know, with that right there, gave me that flame, the fight. I just couldn't give up. I couldn't give up. I couldn't let the streets defeat me. I couldn't let the streets win. The VA kind of helped me out a little bit too. They told me about this program, the VASH program they have for veterans. They had this apartment for me and I came here. You know, I started to feel like a human again. Getting my college degree was like winning the lotto. Cause I didn't think I was gonna make it. It was like shock. I was like, me? Today I'm going to Hollywood Food Coalition. Help them load up some supplies and serve the homeless. I do a lot of volunteer work. It's important to me because I've been there and I can relate to the people that's in that moment. I want to be able to give back some kind of way. I'm a dad, granddad. You know, after so many years on the street, you know, things like a shower is like a luxury. being able to come home with a key to your door, being able to say that word, home, that's great.
This is where I grew up, in Glendale. I grew up here. I went to school in Wilson, graduated there, and graduated in Glendale High School. Yeah, and I went to Glendale Community College, and that's when I pretty much got pregnant. When I had my first baby, that's when I got married with my first husband, and then moved to Vegas, and pretty much been there for like 5 years to have 4 more kids. Living in Vegas, it kind of changed a lot from good to bad. He become more outgoing, alcohol, drugs, violent, become more increases to verbal, to physical. And I was 7 months pregnant, and I was having that feeling that he's doing something wrong. I went home early, and that's when I caught him with another woman. Yeah, I caught him with another woman in my own house that I paid with my kids inside. And that's when I said, I'm done. I'm done. I was hitting him and just like, and when he pushed me, I fell in the stairs. I was pregnant for one. He pushed me. I fell in the stairs and kicked me in my stomach. And it stopped right there because the woman that he was sleeping with, it's our neighbor who is 14 years old. I was single for at least almost 6 years, and then I met my second husband. He was a good provider for us. He was a good man. But then he stopped. That's when the abusive physically started. Grabbed me, locked me into my room, slapped me, punched me. Sorry. When I left, I stayed with my sister for a couple months, and then from my sister to my brother, just in the car for 3 months in the car. There's a time that I kind of tell myself maybe I shouldn't even left it because I didn't have nowhere to go. It was hard being in the car. Cold inside, and you don't even know where to park because to where we're at, it's kind of dangerous because you don't know who's just gonna open the door and sneak in and do stuff to you, That's when I found Tom in the website. I was just browsing the website and emailing every shelter that I know, every charities, everything that I could think of maybe that could help us. They gave me a bed. They gave us food. And I hope, This is my room. This is our beds. And this is AJ. And this is where he sleeps, and this is where I sleep. And then the other two right there is Jeremiah sleep on the top, Big Boy is in the bottom. We are in Glendale. We love hanging out right here. It's close to my son's college. We pretty much just we'll just get pizza around the corner and just bring here, and I just let them run around right there. Rudy is my oldest one. He's gonna be 21 on June. He lives with the roommates, because in my the shelter where I'm staying at, if you're over 18, you're gonna go to where the adult is, and pretty much I just don't want him to be in that second floor.
When I found out that they were living in a shelter, I honestly thought it was way better than sleeping in a car, because before, when my mom had to like drop them off to school and all that, I believe like they started driving at like 4 or 5 a.m. and I slept in the car for like 3 hours until school started. I slept in my car for 2 months, and it gets really cold in the car.
My second son, he went to the Marine, and he set his goal, and that's the same thing as my oldest one. Once they set their mind to something, they will do it and try to get that dream that they wanted to get. My attention is with my kids now. I haven't given them a perfect life, but I know I raised them right. They make me who I am right now. They make me stronger than I was before. They're the reason why I'm stronger. They're the reason why I try harder. You know, I try my best because they push me. Sometimes I be telling them, you know what, once everybody graduated, don't call me for a month, because I'm gonna be in Hawaii drinking my margarita, but I'll be relieved, you know. And that's when I would say, I did my job, bye. As soon as we got this place, it's like a new beginning and a new life. This life right now we have is the best life ever.
I first started writing poetry when I was 9 years old. It all comes from like my life experiences. So whenever there's something, whether it be happy, sad, anger, whatever the event is that's going on, I have to get it out on the paper, because you know, paper don't talk back. You know, I get to say whatever I want to say until I'm finished.
I wrote a letter to Santa Claus, but I guess what I wrote wasn't normal. Little girl requested, said, "Dear Santa, I want to pick one, a real Christmas tree. I want to strap it to the top of the car, take it home. I want to pull out a box of decorations that's been in our family for generations. I want to help cook Christmas dinner. I want to leave milk and cookies out on Christmas Eve. I want to believe. I want to plant seeds and grow things besides stereotypes. I want to celebrate my birthday in my backyard. I want to have a water balloon fight without all the restrictions. I want a friend, not a bunkmate, but a friend. And most of all, I want to be a kid again. Only if you can, Santa, only if you can. But you'll have to give it to me personally, because we still ain't got no Christmas tree."
I first became homeless when I was 3 years old, when we were living in Texas. But we moved to California and we had a place for a while until I was 8, and we became homeless again. And I stayed homeless from 8 till 17. I never really qualified myself as a kid. Cause once I hit 8 and we hit the streets, I had to grow up immediately. There was no time for, I have to watch my little brother. We got to push him in the basket. We got to get here. We got all of our bags. We got to walk from Compton to Long Beach. And if you don't know, that is far. And we used to do stuff like that all the time, just because we don't have nowhere to be. So we might as well just walk around until we get tired and find a hotel that'll let us pay only $20 tonight till we make up the rest tomorrow. You know what I mean? We've literally lived in just about every place a homeless person can live: under bridges, abandoned houses, cars, at the park, in multiple shelters. We've lived in so many shelters. I mean, I know every single shelter there is to know in California. Longest we stuck around for a place was probably 6 months, you know. So it was really hard for me, because then I have to try to make new friends. But then I was that homeless kid who wasn't always able to take a shower. So then it was like new school, new bullies, new problems, you know. So my mom would always say, it don't matter what they think about what you look like. But there's a certain extent where it does for yourself. I'm not trying to look nice so that I can impress someone. I want to look nice so I feel comfortable going to school and learning and sitting in class and raising my hand, because I don't mind if people look at me. I ran away from a shelter when I was 15 years old because there was just too much chaos going on, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore. And I thought it was gonna be just a little easier. I thought, you know, my mom will have one less mouth to feed, you know what I mean? I can go out there and I can go to school and get a job and then go back and give my mom the money I make from work so that we can get out of here, you know? That's how I was thinking. But when you get out there, it's a lot harder than that, you know? Whereas like I could go to the GED classes where there's no money being made, there's no food given, there's nothing. Or because I haven't eaten in 3 days, I'm gonna stand out here, miss the GED class and panhandle for a couple of bucks so I can eat today. I didn't really get off the streets by myself. I was kind of like taken off the streets. A man snatched me into his vehicle and I fought my way out and all this stuff. And I was going to attempt suicide. And, you know, the people that I was around, you know, found me and they sent me to this mental hospital, and that's where I was for a while until they were able to release me to foster care, and then from foster care, the transition back with my mom. I think the thing that really made me sad about going back to my family was that we were still living in shelters. And so it was kind of like, it was just all for nothing. You know what I mean? I didn't change anything. I didn't help anything. I just like ruined a bunch of stuff. I just started writing. So I was working with a nonprofit organization called Get Lit Words Ignite. And they were helping me out a whole lot. I wind up getting an apartment at 20. I have been in my own apartment now for 2 months. I love using my key and just being able to go, and there's no time limit and there's no sign in and there's no badge, you know. It's just go in, tap the key, get in my room, you know what I mean? I could kick my shoes off and sprawl on my bed, you know what I mean?
Over the years, the more I've talked about my story, people have said to me, you know, how did someone who was, you know, raised with a good family, how did somebody who went to Harvard, how did somebody who had a job, how did that lead to homelessness? There's not one path to it, and any spot in the world can lead to it. Today, I'm an elected official in the second largest city in the country, representing about 275,000 people. Some of the wealthiest and most powerful people in the world, the west side of Los Angeles. I mean, I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, nuclear family. You know, there were parents married, had jobs, 3 kids, happy childhood, went to college, got a job, the whole deal. So when I came to California in 91, 92, you know, I was young and started living the party scene, and I fell into the party scene pretty hard. Alcohol and drugs, cocaine and crystal meth, and spiraled down pretty deeply and pretty quickly. And there are some people who are high-functioning addicts and alcoholics, and there are people who are not high-functioning addicts and alcoholics. I was one of the not high-functioning ones. And so I lost a lot. And you know, I never lived in an encampment for months at a time, but I didn't have a place to live for a while. And there were nights I slept in my car. There were nights I slept on the beach. There were nights I scraped together a few bucks and stayed in really seedy motels. And there's some nights I stayed on some friends' couches. I'd get like a newspaper or Time magazine to read, a fifth of really, really crappy, cheap whiskey, and a loaf of Wonder Bread, some mustard, and some bologna, and that would be sort of what I'd live on for a couple of days at a time. I think what sparked the alcohol and the addiction is that I'm an addict. I have an addictive personality, and you're sort of hardwired for it. You know, I don't know that anything makes you an addict. I spent a lot of time when I first got sober trying to figure out why, and then I realized I don't really give a shit about the why. It's about what you do about it no matter what. There was just one day I woke up and I just sort of gave up. I just didn't like the way I was feeling anymore, and I remembered sort of looking at the sunrise, and I had an opportunity when I was younger, just out of college, working in Massachusetts. I was a newspaper reporter, and it didn't pay very well. So on Friday nights, I took a part-time job at a homeless shelter. And so part of what I had to do working at that homeless shelter was, there was a men's dorm and a women's dorm. I had to sit in the men's dorm so the women could come in for an AA meeting. So for several months, I was weekly going to a 12-step meeting and hearing it all. I wasn't paying that much attention. I didn't think it had anything to do with me. But then a couple years later, when I was sort of awakening to hope or optimism or God or whatever you may call it, that memory was there, and it sort of kicked in. When I was running for re-election in 2017, and one of the candidates' debates, the moderator asked a question of the candidates about, you know, what sort of experiences have most deeply shaped you. And I named two. One was being a father, and the other was being an addict. I think I understand a bit sort of the predicament of people who are homeless. Homelessness is all around us, and there's a universal thing, or a nearly universal thing I hear from people is, I didn't think it could happen to me. And as someone who's struggled with addiction in my life and spent some time sleeping on the beach and in my car, I know it can happen very easily. And you know, my understanding of the world is that we're all broken and that we're all flawed and we all fall down, and we need to help pick each other up.